Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
emotions that we meet here today. You know, we're sad to lose someone so wonderful and accomplished as Sudharma, but we're happy to celebrate such a wonderful life, you know, such a life of giving. I want to especially welcome Sudharma's two beautiful daughters, Prema and Braja, and the very famous granddaughter, Ada, you know, who's super well-behaved and cooperative from what I've seen so far. And Sudharma's sister, what's your name? Karen, his sister Karen, and brother Greg, who've come here. And also a special welcome to Rukmini and Utama, who've come here also for this special day. So we'll start out. Pranada composed a prayer, so I'll just read this prayer. And it says, Sudharma lived a very dedicated life in service to Shri Shri Radhakrishna and her spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, in one sense, we need her prayers, but it's also a beautiful gift and contribution to pray for a special soul, especially in moments of transition. Everyone's prayer counts. Everything creates an impact and influence. We're always being influenced by others. It's a good use of our time to voluntarily invest our time and energy for creating favorable influences. We can just close our eyes for a minute, try to concentrate our will and intention, our well-wishing in the direction of Sudharma Dasi's soul in this transition from one life to the other. Transition moments are very important, and communal prayer is important. So we'll just, everyone in their own way, can just kind of remember her and wish her the very best. So we have, I think we were going to start out with Braja and Prema. And do you want to sit with Braja, Prema? All right, you want to sit up here?
Okay, does that work? Yeah. I'm not very used to using too many microphones, but hi everybody, my name is Braja, and I'm Sudharma's oldest daughter. So first I just want to say thank you very much to the community who has shown up so much for my mom in these last few weeks. It's made the time that's been really difficult much easier to have the love and support of the community that she really cared for. And so I just want to say like a just very sincere thank you, and especially to Ananga, who was able to give my mom her last rites, and to Canada for organizing and helping with like she has been on my mom for a while to figure out all her affairs, and my mom, who's an amazing creative soul, is also not the most organized or down to earth in some ways, and so it was so helpful that she has helped us with all of the logistics that come with this hard time. And I also wanted to say thank you to Sukada, who is one of the best neighbors ever, and has just like shown up for us in so many countless ways. And I know that I'm leaving a lot of people unnamed who would be named by my mom, and so I'm just reflecting on what has been my experience the past 2 weeks, but know that like my mom loved you all so dearly and so deeply, and she felt your support, and it was what made this community meaningful and important for her, and she would only want to bring joy and to be remembered by you all joyfully as well. So I'm both very sad to be here and also thankful to have this time to celebrate my mother, who would want this time to be a celebration. She wasn't one for big to-dos, and she wasn't one to make a fuss out of herself, and sometimes that could be very frustrating because she had such an impact on those around her, and I think it was hard for her to feel confident in taking up the space and feeling pride in what she was doing. And it's been so incredible to hear people reflect on what she meant to them and to hear how she made an impact on others, even though there were times that she didn't she didn't want to take that. She wanted to be humble. And so I have both a few words from Prema and then just like a few memories that I wanted to share. But most of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for your support and your care in these past few weeks. It has made a world of difference to us in navigating something that's incredibly hard. So let me just pull it up. Okay, so I'm going to read Prema's. Okay, so this is Prema's words, so I'm reading them, but they're not mine. My mom cared deeply about personalism in a devotional life, and that's how our relationship was as well, personal. I can't articulate for other people how much I love her, except to say that I am incredibly grateful for the offerings of time, care, and healing that we've given to each other. For me, that relationship continues. I am also grateful for the many, many meaningful relationships she developed throughout her life, and for how widely she is loved by others who share in this grief and celebrate in her memory. Thank you. Thank you. And then I may or may not, okay, here we go. So here's some things that I wanted to share about my mom. She took comfort in her religion and the community, always. She swayed to bhajans, always. She swayed to the Grateful Dead, always. She rested her head on you when you hugged her. One of her favorite stories to tell about me was, I was born in New Vrindavan, and then we spent a lot of time traveling to all the other temples around the United States up until we moved here when I was 9. And there's lots and lots of memories there, but one of my mom's favorite memories that she would always tell me was that I would go out, I learned to crawl sometime around 7 months, and then I would go out and have social visits with another baby down the hallway at New Vrindavan, and so we would crawl out to meet each other. When I was little, we traveled to so many Hare Krishna temples, and one of my memories of that is that my mom was always talking constantly. Always. And with I never realized how long it would take or who she was talking to, but it was always about something that seemed incredibly important and meaningful, and she was in the conversation for sure. So I could tug on her sari as much as I wanted, but we weren't going anywhere until we figured out the conversation. So I learned about a lot of words, Robin George case, legal, all kinds of things at a very young age. And I knew they were very serious things, but I didn't know what they were, and I knew that she was going to resolve them by talking about them, and I trusted that she'd be able to do it. My mom read me the entire Ramayana and the entire Mahabharata when I was a kid, several times. I still don't know how that's possible, but she also read me The Lord of the Rings, so somehow she was able to read all of those things to me every night. When I was in college, she took me to India, and one of the things that I'm going to take with me from my mom is her strength and curiosity in exploring the world. She was not afraid to haggle with people, even when we didn't need to haggle. She would take charge and she would lead the way in strange places, and she was determined. And so at the time, that was something that was difficult for me, and now it is something that I would like to take with me, is that she was an enterprising spirit and that she wasn't afraid of anything. She was also not afraid to tell other people to get out of my way, or to tell other people to get out of Prema's way. She was an amazing grandmother to my daughter, Ada. And my mom was always fighting a fight prior to these last few years. There was always a project or something that she was going to sort out or make right in the world. And with my daughter, Ada, I saw her for the first time be you know what, the fighting, I'm done with that. I've done my time, and I'm going to pass it on, and I hope other people are inspired to make changes. And for now, I'm going to focus on the small things in life that delight me, like Ada, being with my sister, good food, her plants, her garden, and just being part of this community. She tried so hard to be good. So hard. And she wanted to help others so badly to succeed. And I saw her be devastated at times when she didn't feel like she had been successful. And so one of the things that is most important to me to say is that she was successful. And it's important for me to tell you all that a lot of times we don't realize the impact that we have on people. And it's so important to know that even the times that we feel like we're alone or that we haven't succeeded in every way is to recognize the relationships that we have with other people around us and to take comfort, because there is times that I wish that my mom would have given herself more credit for the lasting impacts that she had on other people. And so that's the most important thing for me to do right now, is just to recognize that, to say that I love her very deeply, and to say thank you to everybody for supporting her, and thank you for creating this community and this time for her as well.
Thank you so much, Virgin Prima. So you can judge a tree by its fruit. So these very special, beautiful, educated, successful daughters are proof of Sudharma's love and care. And she, just like she nourished her daughters, she nourished her plants. I think it was Prema that told me that Sudharma had, even as disabled as she was, she started a whole garden, like a decorative garden right outside her door, and then another bigger garden. And she said to Prema that she had a relationship with each plant. And Prema gave very explicit instructions that we need to keep that garden going and keep it watered, in memory of her mom. So we will do that. Okay, next would be, a clip of Sudharma. You ready to play that?
Almost.
Get your Kleenexes ready.
Pass it around.
While we're setting up the video of the meeting, would you like to speak next? Meaning a very initial, original disciple of Srila Prabhupada, very beloved and very good friend of Sudharma's.
Hare Krishna. My deepest condolences to Braja, Prema, and to you both, her sister and brother, and to actually everyone in this community who loved her so much. Sudharma, I believe she was born on Christmas Day. Isn't that right? She was born on Christmas Day. And I was thinking when we were flying here from DC, I was thinking about Jesus said that blessed are those who have seen and believed, but more blessed are those who have believed who have not seen. And I was thinking about how Sudharma didn't really have the personal time with Prabhupada that some of us had, but yet she had so much faith in him through his books, through his teachings. So She was really an extraordinary trailblazer, pioneer, fighter, and she was always fighting for the underdog and those who were being misunderstood, fighting against speciesism, sexism, everything. You know, she was just such a great example of fighting for the right thing. And my husband in Newton and I knew her in different places, here in Alachua, in Denver. She came through Denver with you, Raja. I have this memory of you. This is kind of quirky and charming, but so I remember being in the prasadam room where they would take lunch and breakfast in the Denver temple, sitting there with you one morning. I don't know how old you were, maybe you were 8 or 9 or something, and you just turned to me and said, "So what's your program, Prabhu?" And I was thinking, this is Sudharma reincarnated. This child is Sudharma. It was just so, I always remember that was so cute and so charming, you know. But yeah, she was always fighting for her god sisters, fighting for women in the ISKCON movement. I wanted to read, so there's a little bit of, Pranit, are you going to be speaking at all? You going to be, yeah? Because you might know the background of this a little bit better than I do, but there had been so much neglect, abuse, disregard for women in the ISKCON movement that at one point you were one of the, I think you paid for Sudharma, isn't that right? You paid for Sudharma to come to Mayapur to speak?
Actually, all the ladies.
All the ladies here in Alachua.
No, the ones that attended the 2000 meetings.
So you gathered resources so that
All those women
all
could
those
go.
ladies could come. So a group of us came and spoke to the ISKCON governing body in the year 2000 to speak about the abuses to women, the neglect, the disregard, the abuse. Several of us spoke, and Sudharma spoke as well. I'm not going to read to you the heartbreaking anecdotes that she recites in her presentation. I'm reading from the ISKCON Communications Journal, which hopefully you can find online.
Okay, what volume?
What?
What volume?
This is volume 1, June 2000. Yeah, hopefully it can be found online. Anyway, if I read you her whole presentation that she spoke, you'd all be just crying and overwhelmed. I'm not going to read the anecdotes that she recited, but I'm going to read a little bit of what she did say. She says, so who came? So it was Vishaka, Sudharma, Sitala, Yamuna, Kusha, Sudamani, Sudharma, and me. We came and spoke to the GBC, and many of them really weren't interested in what we had to say. Some of them were open to it, but it was, it was something that had to be spoken, and it was perhaps groundbreaking, hopefully. So Sudharma says, this is just excerpts. She says, to understand the seriousness of a disease, it is important to recognize its symptoms. Otherwise, by minimizing or ignoring the symptoms, the body may be invaded by a terrible, even fatal illness. So I'm skipping forward, but she says, many of you have probably wondered why we felt it was so important to establish the women's ministry. Perhaps I can shed some light on this by sharing a few personal experiences and thoughts. Perhaps also through my testimony and what you have heard from my God sisters, you will understand that this is not feminism, but rather a sincere attempt to create an environment conducive to devotional service for Vaishnavis, women followers of Krishna. I hope that you will also recognize that the seeds of injustice toward and prejudice against women still bear fruit today. And just the last few paragraphs. The stories I've mentioned represent a minute segment of the misfortune I and others experienced. If you believe these are tales of ISKCON's distant past,
my present service to the women's ministry has taught me otherwise. We sit before you now, a ragtag remnant of Srila Prabhupada's female disciple army. Each one of us had considerable reservations about making this journey, and each of us came at substantial personal sacrifice. One of the ladies here has even lost her means of livelihood as a result of taking extended time off work. But we came out of a sense of duty and concern that extends in truth beyond our compassion for other female devotees. It is our perception that our movement is becoming more and more fragmented due to a lack of empathy, understanding, honesty, and trust amongst our society's members, and thus our society's heart is being torn apart. Perhaps the desire to renounce the object of sense gratification has led to a denouncement of women devotees, which in turn results in a denial of the more feminine Vaishnava qualities that each one of us holds within the core of our hearts, qualities that may now be needed to reinstill the trust and faith of our society's members. Despite the sufferings of the past, our concern is not for ourselves, but rather for the health and well-being of our society. Please give us the opportunity to serve cooperatively and respectfully together so that we may all fully contribute our talents and abilities in the service of our spiritual master. So just a few moving words from Sudharma, from the beautiful heart of Sudharma. So just in closing, I wanted to say that, we had the good fortune of going over to Prema and Sudharma's house for lunch not so long ago, but I was with her on a little committee to create a mood of radical personalism in ISKCON. So when I think of what will be her legacy going forward, what was most important to her, and what we should carry forward into the future, I think it was her wish that the ISKCON society really imbibe a mood of radical personalism that was very, very important to her. Each one of us, or I call it also radical noticing, each one of us noticing when someone's suffering is, so many of you in this community exemplify Sukhada and Pranada, so many of you. So yeah, I think that's important that we try to, in her honor, carry that forward. She was also she created this radio station, which I know the women's ministry has discussed trying to take it over, but that was another important legacy that she'd love to have carried forward. So if any of you are inspired she wanted to be 24/7, she wanted to be 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Well, maybe all of that won't be possible, but maybe something. So maybe some of you in this room, or maybe some of you listening online might be inspired to help carry that vision of Sudharma's forward into the future also. So again, my deepest condolences to you, Prema, Raja, and Sudharma's dear brother and sister, and all of you who loved her so much, love her so much. Hare Krishna.
We all have some creativity, we all have some gifts, we all have some preferences for how we express our devotion or share devotion, how we give Krishna. So how did you harness the bravery to go and do what you did? How can we do that? What can you tell us?
Doing it because, it couldn't just be about that experience. It had to be a connected experience. And, from that deep meditation, of course, then many other things became feasible because it wasn't about the external environment. It was about the internal environment. So I think that the best thing that we can really do in life is never forget two things: introspection and prayer. You know, we should always be contemplating, you know, very deeply inside of ourselves about who we are and where we're going and how we're interacting and giving and viewing the world and what kind, you know, if we're hurting others, if we're doing these things. I think it's really, really vital to always be aware of our actions, you know, and how they're impacting. And believe me, I say that, and that doesn't mean I haven't really caused, you know, pain to others. You know, sometimes I don't even know how or why, but the fact is, I mean, he was just present, you know, just present. And I think we need to, you know, understand matter in its completeness and what it is, you know, and the fact that that is what this world is. It doesn't matter that we're practicing devotional life. This world is what it is. You know, our practice of devotional life matters not in the sense that we're going to make this world better necessarily, although sometimes we will. But it matters in the sense that through these experiences, Krishna is continually there, and you become aware of his personal presence, you know. And that is not a cheap thing, and it's not a small thing, and it's not, you know, I mean, I would love to say, yeah, no, that's not true, because it makes you feel foolish, like, you know, why would anyone have that kind of mercy that Krishna would be there for them? But Krishna is there for each one of us, every one of us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. On hearing of dear Sudharma Prabhu's passing, my husband Yadubara wrote this. Sudharma Devi was a dear friend for many years, and at one time we shared a home with her and her elder daughter, Braja. Sudharma was always thinking of how to serve the devotees and reach out to the public. In the last few years, she was physically severely handicapped, but was always in a joyful mood, smiling and asking about the welfare of others. May Krishna carry her to her desired destination at his lotus feet. End quote. My family and I have known Sudharma Prabhu since the early 1980s. And as I think back on the time I think of someone quietly yet completely dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and to his mission. It's a legacy that Sudharma became one of the greatest advocates for the Vaishnavis in Srila Prabhupada's movement. She served tirelessly to establish ISKCON's Vaishnavi ministry and to liaison with GBC members so that they could understand and support this initiative, which is still going strong today. It was Sudharma who arranged for the first Vaishnavi conference, which took place on a boat docked in Los Angeles, because the Los Angeles temple authorities didn't want such a conference on the temple grounds. Later in the year 2000, Sudharma Prabhu personally arranged for a group of women to address the GBC to explain what women experience in Srila Prabhupada's movement. That was the first time the GBC heard the voice of ladies at a GBC meeting. It was groundbreaking and was due to the vision and the skilled efforts of Sudharma. What especially attracted me to Sudharma Prabhu was that she was always grateful for the gift of Krishna consciousness, always eager to help devotees in any way she could, while she herself was undemanding. It was easy to be with Sudharma if she was without pretense and accepted people as they came. Despite many pressures put on her from many directions, Sudharma remained composed and didn't appear anxious or upset. In her later years, as she became infirm, Sudharma accepted her situation with grace and readjusted her lifestyle and her expectations of herself. She was without bitterness, anger, or resentment, but rather continued to serve creatively. She started a radio program and podcasts for the devotees, and in the process she studied programming, recording, microphones, uploading, downloading, and all the other pieces of creating such a show. Sudharma was clear and articulate to the end. Shortly before her passing, she did an excellent podcast on the topic of radical personalism. Among many other brilliant points, Sudharma said this: as devotees, we're prone toward austerity and renunciation, and sometimes we forget the importance of being warm-hearted with each other, and what a difference that can make in people's lives. We may think of warm-heartedness as sentiment, rather than an inherent part of who we are as devotees, an inherent part of our philosophy. But the 6 Goswamis were always loved by everyone because they were kind to everyone. Krishna is everyone's best friend. We need to feel his kindness in our communities and act in a way that brings out others as individuals. We don't want to just get something done or to prove a philosophical point, but we want to really uplift each other. A few minutes after that, she said we can understand our position as fallen and find our position in connection to Krishna and embrace that and experience the relief that it gives. All of a sudden, we don't have to prove ourselves, but we have to depend on Krishna. This is something tangible and real. Letting go, being vulnerable, being dependent is fulfilling. It isn't something demeaning. The ultimate goal is to develop our relationship with Krishna. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sudharma Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Sridhar Maharaj will be speaking next. That mic is off.
Hridayana Maharaj, His Grace Hridayana Maharaj will be speaking next, who is a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada and one of the initial gurus that was appointed to carry on our movement. So he is going to be speaking next.
Begin? Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about Sudharma. Once one of the Beatles asked Prabhupada, how can we tell who is a genuine devotee? And Prabhupada replied that a genuine devotee, an advanced devotee, will be a perfect gentleman. And of course the same holds true for Vaishnavis. Sudharma exhibited many qualities of a perfect lady. And all my personal interactions with her, she was always kind, intelligent, just in every sense, a very a Vaishnavi, worthy of respect. I epitomize that. Like many of us, but I epitomize that. like many of us, but I think even more, I think in her case, she had to tolerate and endure difficult situations in life, even when she was much younger. And yet throughout all of this, she remained, as Prabhupada would say, a very staunch devotee of Prabhupada, of Krishna. So we can recognize things by their symptoms. That's what it means to have a spiritual science. That it's not mere sentiment, but by the qualities of the devotee. By the symptoms, we can tell who is advanced, who is deeply Krishna conscious. And that certainly was the reality of Sudharma. And the fact that we're gathered here to honor her as she deserves is a testament to the fact that many Vaishnavas recognized her excellent qualities, her genuine devotion, her special devotion to Prabhupada's mission. And so of course, I knew her. She was my sister in Krishna consciousness. I didn't spend nearly as much time with her as some of you did. And so therefore, I won't speak for a long time, but it's, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita regarding the destination of a devotee when they leave this world, that verse that begins, Yang yang vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante talevaram tang tang nivaiti konteya sadata bhava bhavita. It's not merely that at the very end of life one happens to say Krishna or remember Krishna, as some people think, but actually what Krishna really says there in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is that sadata bhava bhavita, what determines one's destination is the state of consciousness that one was always cultivating, sada, tadbhava bhavita, throughout their life. And so it's not a question, in the case of a great soul like Sudharma, like what were her last words or what was the last thing she saw, because what Krishna is actually talking about is that a person who spent their life cultivating a certain consciousness. And so Sudharma, on the authority of Krishna himself, has a glorious Krishna conscious destination. And so these moments, the passing of an outstanding servant of Krishna is always bittersweet. It's bitter because we lose the association of someone whose company was valuable in Krishna consciousness. And it's sweet because we know that person will receive extraordinary blessings from Krishna. And so we rejoice in their successful human life. Prabhupada always spoke in those terms about human life, the purpose of human life, the proper engagement of human life, and so on. And so at a moment like this, we see that someone had an extraordinarily successful human life. A person who followed Krishna's instructions about how we should live our lives, and did so steadfastly with great spiritual power, unstoppable, and very kind to others. So at this bittersweet moment, we should have, if we pay attention to what Krishna teaches, complete confidence that Sudharma has a very glorious destination in Krishna consciousness. And I celebrate her exemplary life and her extraordinary spiritual destination. So thank you all very much for this opportunity, and all glories to my god sister Sudharma Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. And Ramacharita Prabhu, would you like to speak next?
These are
These are the bittersweet times, you know. The bitter we all know because we've lost a friend and a crusader, and the sweet part is we know her fate is wonderful. She goes on to serve Prabhupada somewhere, somehow. I don't know the details. I just know what happens, and we all know that. The sign of a truly deep spiritualist, not somebody superficial, but somebody really deep into higher consciousness, into spiritual life, is very simple. It's given in the Gita directly, very simple. They're not envious, simply not envious. They don't blame others for whatever difficulties they may have. Sudharma went through difficulties that I don't know I could ever handle. The death of Sudharupa I did his funeral, we were very close. And the illnesses, and Prema has her health challenges that are unusual, and Prema was so brave, and I have friends in the English department. She has been the heroine of the English department because of her brilliance. So her mother, Sudharma, was so proud of Prema, yet, and so appreciative of that Braj would always be there as the backup, because we knew this was inevitable. And she would tell me this. We would speak every month or so, and she would share with me her concerns, because what Sudharma had as a deep spiritualist, she didn't criticize others. She loved. She offered a lot of love to me. I'm not sure I deserved it. I try to offer it back to her, but a very loving person. Now, when somebody undergoes difficulties, we tend to point fingers. Hey, it's you, it's you, it's you. And even though there were times when she was, some of us know these stories too well, terribly mistreated, and she was a pioneer. Any pioneer is going to be mistreated. It happens. She was challenging a status quo that was wrong. The idea that we are this body is the basic teachings of the Gita. It says, and you're marginalizing me because I'm a woman? She then stood up and so bravely. I would tell her at times, you inspire me. And she'd always say, no, I'm just doing what I have to do. Very humble about it. So anybody who doesn't hold a grudge when mistreated and brave, you know they're a deep spiritualist. Others are going to provide a list today of her many accomplishments, be it a women's ministry to a radio show. I won't go into that. What we did do, Storm and I, we checked in with each other every month. How are you doing? And when she would check in, she always wanted to know how I'm doing first. And my difficulties were minor compared to what she went through. She always know, how are things with you? How are things with your wife? My wife went through some illness and this, and that. And whoever was with Sudharma could feel that there was love in the core of her heart. And the expression that I first heard from Rambaru, but Sudharma was pushing it big time. It's one of my favorite expressions, and it's one that ought to be the tagline for the Hare Krishna movement, which is radical personalism. Because it's so easy to become impersonal, treat each other as objects, as something to help me get what I want. Radical personalism is about the loving, deepest exchanges, which ultimately is philosophically what the Krishna movement's about anyway. And I'm so pleased to say that Sudharma was not just talking it, was the radical personalist. The other quality she had is she needed help with various little things, big things, and I'd have to squeeze it out of her. Sudharma, what do you need help with? Everything's okay. Sudharma, okay, now tell me the truth. She did have to, and she would take service from others, but her whole mood was, what can I do
to offer service to others. To conclude, one of the things I'll miss the most about Sudharma, though we have some recordings to help, is her deep, commanding voice. She had this very deep voice, and when she would speak to me, she always had this air of authority about her. Even though she wasn't like trying to instruct me or tell me this or that, whenever she would speak on an issue, let's say a women's issue or something spoke on commonly, spoke that deep, commanding voice, I said, you know, you convinced me. She had that ability to be very convincing. So I'm glad we have her recordings. I'm glad we have our radio station. And especially glad that we have Prema and Vraja to carry on her legacy. And I had to say this at Sundarup's funeral, so I'll say it again. It's an important point and something that I took very seriously. At his funeral, I said, everyone who's there for Sudharma, raise your hand and really mean it that you're really there. I raised my hand and I meant it. So I want to know who's here for Vraja and Prema. But you got to mean it. You got to mean it. And if you mean it, it works. Okay, you got to be there. So we're there for you guys. And I know you have the most wonderful sister. So she's loved. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mama Tirtha. And next we'll hear from Shamala Kishore.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I recognize that I didn't have the extent of association with her that many of you did. I'm just leaving a little early, so that's why I'm speaking now. But thank you for inviting me to share a few words. So sometimes in life, there are relationships that we have that there's plenty of quantity, a lot of time that we get to spend with the person. And in my case with Sudharma Prabhu, it was quality rather than quantity. And particularly in the last year, last maybe 2 years. And just a few weeks ago, my last interaction with her, she gave me this warm embrace. I have never experienced such a loving, accepting, and kind hug before in my life. And I was talking to her about, I grew up in ISKCON, and I was talking to her about some of my I guess I could say resentments that I've held due to some of the ways that I observed Vaishnavis being treated and some of the ways that I was treated. And so just in that hug, in that embrace and her acceptance and her complete compassion for me, I felt that the last residual bitterness that was there just washed away. And I felt her, she's so optimistic and so warm and forgiving, even though she had been through so much. That was really what I took from that, is that she had gone through so many challenges. She had fought for so many others who had gone through challenges, and yet she didn't have that bitterness. She was completely loving and just trying to see what she could do going forward. Until the end of her life, she was wanting to help others, especially other Vaishnavis around the world. And I'm very grateful that she was so warm and kind to me. And one other thing was that I expressed to her, sometimes I don't know how to help because I get overwhelmed, especially when it's so close to home. Like, how do I help other Vaishnavis and around the world and so on? And she said, don't feel so much pressure. Just be yourself. Just be yourself for Krishna and just serve as who you are. And by that, already you'll be doing so much for the other Vaishnavis. And so that took the pressure and the burden off, and I felt like, okay, I can do that much. I can just keep showing up and my small way to be authentic and to serve, and hopefully that will be pleasing to Sudharma Prabhu and helping her legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamala. And Dina Tarani will be speaking next.
Haribol, and I've never met you, Prema, but I did know Braja when she was very young, when we were in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm very privileged and honored to be able to stand here for a moment and glorify Sudharma, our dear God sister, wonderful devotee. 5 years ago, we started a discussion and reading group that we met every Sunday. It was just 3 of us, Shruti Rupa, Sudharma, and myself. And by using the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which we started on, every Sunday we would delve deeply into all of the most important things that we wanted to take from this life. In terms of our Krishna consciousness, in terms of our relation with others, in terms of what we can give. And I found always Sudharma, of course, to be thoughtful, intelligent, insightful, very loving, very giving. And one of the things that I took from those wonderful readings and discussions over those 5 years was that the power of association, the power of being among associates where you can reveal your innermost thoughts, your innermost feelings, knowing that you won't be judged, you won't be criticized for it, and you can be real and truthful. And we would often discuss our strengths and those areas that we would wish to improve on within our lives and within our Krishna consciousness, and how we adapted to the pressures and uncertainties that surrounded us. So the last readings that we had, we were reading from Prahlad Maharaj. And the very last reading, Prahlad Maharaj had the incident with Lord Nrsimhadev had occurred where Nrsimhadev had literally torn apart Hiranyakashipu, and all of the demigods came fearfully to offer prayers. And they came from everywhere, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Chanaras, the Pitras, from everywhere they came. And they were afraid to approach Lord Nrsimhadev. But Prahlad is described so beautifully that he was certain of the affection of Krishna. And so he approached him without trepidation and without fear. And so afterwards we spoke on that, and Sudharma said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had that within our hearts, that certainty of the affection of Krishna to the extent that all fear vanished, that there was no fear. And I thought about that after her passing, that actually I was certain that she was in that loving affection of Krishna, that she was actually being lovingly and affectionately cared for in her next journey in Krishna consciousness. So I just felt incredibly grateful to have had her association, especially in these last years. They were memorable, they were unforgettable, and they increased my love and affection for her immensely. So I just, I feel that sad that she, of course, is gone, but so grateful that just a little touch of experience and association can reach so deeply within the hearts of us all, in whichever way it does. So I thank you very much, and I just offer condolences to all of you, and thank you for allowing me to just speak some little bit about Sudharma. All glories.
Thank you so much, Dina Tarane. So it was Dina Tarane, Sudharma, and Shudarupa. So Shudarupa, would you come as the third member of the group, the reading group?
I can't think of Sudharma without thinking of you, Prema. She spoke about you every week. I met Sudharma actually in the 80s in DC, but I got to know Sudharma when I moved here about 7 years ago. As Dina said, we started this reading. And I know we don't want to talk about one's struggles or suffering, but I grew so much by the way Sudharma carried her suffering and her illnesses. She carried it so well, and as everybody has said, and reiterating, Sudharma cared for others. Even though she was struggling with so much with the dialysis and so many things, she always first wanted to know about me, wanted to know about my daughter, and she always minimized herself, minimized her suffering, she was almost self-effacing, but at the same time she was as brilliant, as everybody has said, all her accomplishments. But my relationship with her was through this reading of the three of us. And like Dina has said, how we went through different layers of it. And it grew to mean a lot to Sudharma, especially more so because she said that she was more homebound, and this meant a lot to her, the readings, to open and share. And even though Sudharma, as everyone knows, her brilliance, her intelligence, her heart can't be minimized, and it's such almost an opposite thing, because usually when you have people that are so brilliant, they lack the softness or the compassion or the heart. But I think Sudharma was equally as heart as she was brilliant, and I grew to love her through her mind, her realizations, and her heart. And she taught me a lot in her quiet, unassuming way, and her words always struck me. I loved her realizations and the deep introspection that she gave. And there was these are one of our emails after the reading, and as I said, the way she viewed herself, well, she begins part of it here. She goes, "I'm a pretty fallen devotee soul, and yet, when I was in the depths of despair in my life, despite my self-serving nature and very weak devotion, Krishna has made his presence to me somehow in a way that carried me through my life. I only wanted in my sharing with you last week to underscore that unconditional nature of the Lord, how liberated and loving that makes you feel, and to be grateful for these gifts, to be grateful for his causeless kindness and soft-heartedness, for that unconditional love, for the mood of just giving and being the devotee despite weaknesses, without expectation or calculation, and that this can be experienced by anyone at any time. These gifts have made it easier for me to prepare to cross over the ocean of birth and death. An even greater and more natural love for the Lord and his devotees. I'm most grateful for our readings
and your association. I hope I'm sharing something of value. She always questions herself like that. With love for you genuinely, a love that comes because you have your heart. I'm indebted for your association. Thank you. Thank you too, and you, Dina, for the readings. And sometimes I travel and it would, I'd feel guilty. And I know that first Sunday after Sudharma had passed, it was Saturday, I felt so empty. I looked, it was 10 o'clock and it was time to read. And I realized that we weren't reading anymore. And it's a great loss in my life. We read all through COVID, and we were shocked. I told Dina, I said, it's been 5.5 years that we've been reading? She said, really? I thought it was like 3. But I went back to our emails, and are we reading this week? It's January 2019. So, and one more last thing. Right before Sudharma passed, we were speaking for a few days because I was going to cook for her on that Saturday. And there was a list of things, but I texted her, I said, Sudharma, tell me what you really want to eat. Anything, whatever cuisine, whatever this, whatever that. I'm really tired of quinoa. She said, I really want vegetables, and then she started going on. She says, I love this, I love that. She says, actually, I'm not austere in my eating. I like, and she named this. I said, okay, great, we're getting somewhere. And then she said, I'm really missing sweets. And I said, okay, we could do that. I can either go the diabetic way or we can try. And she said, no, it's just a one time. Let's just do it. And so I had been preparing for days. I'd already shopped and was very eager to get it all going for her. And so I was in the kitchen Saturday morning. I had things cut up, and I was thinking of this special. I was making her a peach and raspberry cobbler. But I got a text from Jai Gauri. She said, I know Sudharma was looking forward to your meal today. She said, but unfortunately, Sudharma passed away last night. And so I was so taken, but I sat and meditated on Sudharma and was offering prayers, and I thought to myself, Sudharma, wherever you're going today, I know somebody's greeting you with a plate of sweets. So I'm very grateful for that, and I thank you all for giving me this moment. Thank you so much, Sudharma. Next will be 2 Zoom remembrances by Rasa Stali Dasi and Rukmini Dasi from South Africa.
We're calling on them early because it's so late.
Yeah, because of the time difference, they need to speak now.
Hare Krishna. I'm not sure if I can be heard.
Oh, yeah. No problem. We can hear you. 100%.
200%. Hare Krishna. If somebody can just indicate that we can be heard.
Yes.
Thank you. Hare Krishna devotees, this is Rasa Stali from South Africa, and I had the good fortune of meeting Sudharma through the Satvi Sangha, which was arranged by another South African devotee named Sharadiya Ras. And in 2020, she had, the Satvi Sangha had arranged a Janamashtami Women's Special, and Sudharma Prabhu gave a class on Krishna Bedazzles Lord Brahma. And I was really taken aback by that class, and I listened to it about 3 times, and then I decided to write to Sudharma Prabhu, just extending a little bit of appreciation. And what I want to share today is her response to me. And I'll just read it quickly. Dear Rasa Stali, my affections and obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I hope this note finds you well. Yes, Prabhupada and Krishna have been very kind to me in this life, and I have had incredible service opportunities and known so many wonderful devotees who have been there for me in times of strife. It is easy to be a little more soft-hearted when Krishna has been so kind. I pray for you that you may be all that you can be, bringing your most wonderful qualities forward and offering them loving in service. I pray that you will always remain broad-minded and gentle-hearted, despite the ups and downs and the varied circumstances of life. And I pray that you are always self-satisfied, a worthy prayer, discerning, unaffected by the harsh words and actions of others, and giving in every respect. May you find yourself always totally dependent upon our dear Lord, Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy of Vrindavan. With affections, thank you very much for your kind and encouraging words, Sudharma Dasi. So I just wanted to add that many of us have spoken about Sudharma and radical personalism, and this letter is the epitome of how she felt about it. I had arranged with some of my fellow spiritual sisters here in South Africa to have monthly meetings with Sudharma for a period of time. And those meetings would go on for 3 hours sometimes, and she would speak to each of us in such a personal and heartwarming way. So, and also something that I want to mention is whenever she did speak about Prema, it was full, her face would light up and she would fall with joy. So that's just for you, Prema, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Rosa Stella.
Hare Krishna. I'm Rukmini, and I just wanted to share something about Sudharma. Sudharma Prabhu. Never have I met someone who needed so little reason to love you. Love is a big word, and I don't think that you took it lightly. But she just loved you. The first time that I was blown away by her nature, when I was supposed to send her a version of the Gita done in hip-hop that I'd worked on a few years earlier, and she was going to use it for the radio station that she was managing. And there was a due date and I didn't make it, and then this was her response to me. Dear Rukmini, your feelings are paramount to me. I want whatever you offer to bring you joy and satisfaction. If you are unhappy with sending me a simple version of your tune, it's okay, you don't have to, nor should you. I think a simple version would be lovely. In our tradition, it is the devotion that is what matters. And I know that what you have to offer is from the heart. But as I mentioned earlier, what is paramount, what really matters about all of this for me is you. Please don't send me something that in your heart you don't feel is ready or is not what you want others to hear. Krishna can wait. He's fine with that. Follow the dictate of your heart. And don't put me in the equation. I will be happiest if you do what you know to be best. Sincerely, Sudharma. When I read it, it still blows my mind, because if I was trying to run a project, I could hear the conversation I would have had. Okay, so this girl, she missed the deadline, has lots of excuses, and she's going to flake, so don't bank on it, move on. But not Sudharma Prabhu. She had what a heart. She didn't know me at all, and she didn't need a reason to give me the benefit of the doubt, because there was no doubt. She just had my complete best interest at heart. And I can't imagine how a person exists with such a level of service attitude. We've heard of radical personalism, but for her it wasn't an idea, it was how she lived her life. And listening to her for these last couple of weeks, it stuck out to me that her personalism was based on dependence on Krishna, that Krishna will never let you down, that Krishna will show you in so many ways that he's here for you, like she told me. We've heard these things before, but there was the depth when she said them. She could be personal with others because she herself was deeply personal in her relationship with Krishna. Oh, when she heard that my spiritual master had left, she wrote to me and said, now is a time for prayer and contemplation, and maybe even a few tears. I'm thinking of you as if I was sitting here holding your hand with warm affections. Krishna has a plan. And now I think of her at this time, and the same sentiments apply. Thank you, Sudharma Prabhu, for all the time and heart you gave us in those Zooms, for all your sacrifice that now allows women like me to not even think twice before sitting on the Vyasasana or leading a kirtan. Thank you for your love and for showing me that because your heart was so very full, it's possible to love someone with so little reason. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Rukmini. So next will be a clip from Malachi. What? Okay. A very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, one of the initial disciples that spoke with the Beatles and did so much preaching always.
Always gone. Yeah, then she goes.
Hare Krishna. Am I heard?
Yes.
Okay. My obeisances. I'm actually at a construction site. It's a transcendental construction site, meaning for a new temple in Ohio, Columbus. Please accept my humbly offered obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to our dearest Dharma forever. I was really appreciating, I just only heard the last two speakers, but it was just so completely beautifully natural. It was so Sudharma, your wonderful words describing this extraordinary personality, who I first met in London, of all places, actually. I can't remember the exact date. I could have looked it up, but I wasn't able to get that far along. There was a celebration for the 50th anniversary in London. And Sudharma, who hadn't actively been part of the, the London Foundation thing, she was the person who was totally organizing this whole show. And that was being held in Conway Hall, which was where we had our first major public events for Srila Prabhupada and with Srila Prabhupada. And I remember seeing this allure of person, I saw that person. She was up in the balcony. She was up on the stage everywhere. And then I realized she had a baby. And the baby was, there. And in between going from one place to the other, she was checking in on this baby. And I kind of remember thinking, oh, I thought we weren't doing that, because that's how it was when I had my daughter. Like, she was just along for the ride, But Sudharma was just so good at everything she did, including being a mother on the go with this little baby. So, Sridhar Maharaj was the co-person on this situation. So I was meeting them both. And I couldn't really understand this amazing person. It was like, and I didn't know how to speak to her. I didn't know what to say to her. And I was like almost dumbfounded by her incredible energy and her attention to the detail and the care she was putting into every detail, including each person who came in front of her and to whom she had to interact with. And then time moved a little forward, and we were getting these in the mail. This is our temple was in Columbus at the time. We were getting these little magazines, little Pretty Lakshman magazines, Sudharma and Prana. Prana was the Zephyr, but Sudharma's name was quite often there. And at that point in time, having just kind of re-entered this syndrome because my temple had been outside, it was associated with lunar datum, so it was outside, and I had also been outside even more. So finding out that there were women who were actively engaged in engaging and in caring for other women in this movement was a real eye-opener and a heart-opener. And it's something that I could never have the ability to express in terms of my gratitude. But when I hear these other beautiful Vaishnavis speaking, I'm saying, yes, that's what I would say. Yes, that's what I would say. Much of the time, although I was always in appreciation and awe of Sudharma, I was not sure how to speak to her because it seemed like I couldn't speak at her level. She was such an intensely introspective person. And I don't know if she ever realized how far ahead she was of most of us in terms of that introspection. But I think that all of the ladies in this town, past, present, and going into the future, should know about Sudharma and the love and effort she put into recruiting that the women and the ladies in this town should have a place, and we do have a place, even if we have to fight for it sometimes. And Sudharma and Pranada, they were the ones who blazed the trail that opened the door for us to be able to serve equally and freely, even if it doesn't always feel or look that way. And I used to kind of jokingly call Sudharma, you're my spiritual science, you're my spiritual politics guru. Because of her, I took on this GBC Seva service. And she was the one who was really inspired me that, yes, maybe I should try that. It wasn't anything that I thought I had a capability to do at the time. It was just like, well, somebody has to do this. We found out we can do it. Somebody has to do it, or the moment will be lost. But Sudharma was the person who opened that door of reality for me. And she was one of the few ladies that I could actually speak to about what was going on and know that I wouldn't be misunderstood. And that not only would I not be misunderstood, she would understand it far better than I would or did. When you have a valuable jewel and it's misplaced, there's always a great feeling of loss. And Sudharma was a valuable jewel in the legacy of Srila Prabhupada. And I hope that more and more she will come to be known to those who did have the opportunity to meet her. Just like they've written books about certain wonderful devotees who have passed and gone, I'm hoping that the same will happen, that there should be a biography dedicated to Sudharma. So thank you very much. And I offer again my obeisances at the feet of all of you assembled there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Malati, for your remembrances. And Noah Nutama, who is Director of Communications in ISKCON, we'd like you to speak, and is also the, if I dare say, the very famous husband of Rukmini.
I'm not sure what this corridor situation is. I've never seen one, but I think it's 2 empty chairs in front of me.
Can we? One thing, basically, is in respect to the family members. I didn't know the 2 daughters as well, but Sudharma often would mention you, and I met you a few times over the past, but not so much in recent years, but it's nice to see you both here. I don't think I ever met
Sudharma's sister and brother.
Really happy that you're here. Thank you for coming. It adds a lot for all of us. I'm a little disappointed by the pictures here, actually, and I'm thinking we missed something because Sudharma, they're almost all with Sudharma and women. And I'm here to testify Sudharma interacted a lot with the men and had a lot of impact on the men. And we're seeing like a lot of the positive results of that today. So I kind of felt bad. I was like, well, where is she at the GBC meeting? Where is she at the North America meeting? Where is she, like, strategizing with all the guys? So it's not there. So what's that?
We need your pictures.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I didn't take a lot of pictures. So anyway, that did exist. Those times did exist. And let me just find my notes here. Okay. So I was thinking just like a valuable jewel, people appreciate it from different angles of view. So we heard Shruti Rupa talk about, Sudharma with the reading the last 5.5 years and the wonderful offering you want to make and what a wonderful mother she was, different people reflecting on that. So I'm here to talk about Sudharma the activist, because that's the Sudharma that I knew, and that's the Sudharma that I want to talk about and glorify. First, I was really surprised. Raja said she wasn't organized and she really wasn't big on events. The Sudharma I knew was a super organizer and did fantastic big events. Now, when I would visit her house, I wondered if there was like different Sudharmas. But the events that she organized were fantastic. She really did. I knew Sudharma as like very intelligent, very well organized, and a very strategic thinker. And I mentioned this a couple times, but I remember one time asking her, Sudharma, like a lot of women seem to work well with women and men seem to work well with men. You work well with both. What's your secret? And she told me, she said, it's really easy. When I'm talking to the men, I say, what do you think about this? When I'm talking to women, I ask, what do you feel about this? And then everybody can communicate with me. And I didn't get it at first, but I teach communication courses sometimes, and I use an example. I say to like a room full of men, I'll say, well, let's say whatever, you're in Mayapur, one of our spiritual pilgrimage sites, and I say, hey guys, how do you feel about it? And the room goes like deathly silent. Because most men, not all of us, there's a few that are maybe a little more woken up, but sorry to use that term. Let's take away that term. More in touch with themselves. But generally, like men, it's like, how do I feel about but they say, what do you think about Mayapur? Oh yeah, it's a great place. The kirtans are wonderful. It's nice to be reminded of Lord Chaitanya. They can like wax eloquently with that word to stimulate their thinking. So Sudharma knew how to make those connections. I really kind of was working with her in a lot of different projects. She was very involved in what was known as the ISKCON Foundation. Nobody's mentioned that at this point, which is an effort that went on for, I think, about 10 years to bring together people of means who were largely congregational members who had some ability, professional ability, financial resources to help push ISKCON forward, talk about what kind of things should we be doing as a society. She was very, very instrumental in that. I was trying to remember, she organized a bunch of dinners. They might have been for the, maybe somebody knows, were they Robin George fundraisers or the 30th anniversary fundraiser? Anybody remember? Prana, do you remember?
It was Robin George.
Robin George fundraiser. I remember going to like a few of those. They were like, is this a Hare Krishna dinner? I mean, what are these tablecloths on the tables? You know, and there's chairs here, and you know, and is this a silverware? Do any people remember how to use that? I'm not sure. They were like really well organized, beautifully done, super well done. She was also, again, nobody mentioned this, maybe Bir Krishna Maharaj, I think I recorded. She was a North American officer for many years, and we kind of like exchanged seats a little bit. I know Rompad Swami was chairman for quite some time. Bir Krishna Maharaj was chairman, and she and I were like vice chairman for, I think, again, somebody maybe look up, I don't think the records are so good, but probably for like 10 years. 6? Only 6? She was only there for 6 years? Okay. I want to say it seemed like 10, but not because it dragged, but because she was so good and she was so involved. Of course, as we've heard, she was the first women's minister, and she was highly respected amongst the North American temple presidents and GBC members because she was organized, she was articulate, she was intelligent, and she knew how to communicate so well with everyone. And she did, I remember that first, well, it was, I think, then Women's Ministry, now Vaishnavi Ministry, conference that she organized in Los Angeles. I remember, too, when Rukmini and I first moved to Washington, D.C., she was, I think, the assistant executive director for the farm animal reform movement. She was like, she's one of the first people I know that was an activist for devotee values outside of ISKCON. And it was really impressive that she was a very important part of their thing. I was actually thinking I should reach out to the director. I don't know if he's still alive, even to let him know. I'm sure he has many, many fond memories of Sudharma. But I also remember her telling me, the office is really uncomfortable. And I said, why? She said, because I like yogurt. And they're all vegans. And every time I get out a cup of yogurt, they give me a hard time. But she was there. They respected her for all the things that she was doing. And as the women's minister, she led the effort, as Rukmini read part of this, I'm going to read more, of the effort to have a women's presentation to the GBC members in the year 2000. And let's see what, I marked a spot, but now it's not there. Here it is. Okay. So I'm going to read the conclusion of this article. I'm not sure if it came across in the video. This is volume 8, number 1, June 2000 of the ISKCON Communications Journal. Published all the articles, the presentations by Vishaka, Sudharma, Sitala, Yamuna, Kusha, Sudamani, Sudharma, and Rukmini. This is the conclusion. I don't know who wrote this, but probably Sudharma made Pranana. So conclusion, and then I'm going to read the GBC resolutions that came out of it. It's relatively brief. The presentations published here led to the GBC adopting a series of resolutions, which we'll read, aimed at recognizing the value of women in ISKCON and ensuring their right to fully participate in the society according to their abilities and wishes. It is a significant point in ISKCON history. Again, this is 2000, which is painful to hear this was 2000, as you'll hear. It's 25 years ago. A significant point in ISKCON history, as it is here the first time these rights have been so clearly stated by ISKCON's governing body. It's very prophetic. The real test of ISKCON's will to rectify prejudicial behavior lies ahead. The GBC has apologized for its behavior and the behavior of the society at large, but how will the society at large respond to the call to provide, quote, equal facilities from the resolution, equal facilities, full encouragement, and genuine care and protection for the women members of ISKCON, end quote. The resolutions have been passed. Now it is time to see if they are taken to heart. The first signs were not too hopeful. Immediately after the GBC meetings, it was felt by many that as a sign of goodwill, a woman should be allowed for the first time to give Srimad Bhagavatam class in ISKCON's Mayapur temple, our international headquarters. The temple management was strongly opposing, arguing that it was against local custom. We hear that a lot. It was against local custom. Well, Hare Krishna, and would undermine ISKCON's status in its own spiritual heartland. The debate was long and is at times heated. However, the temple management relented, and Vishaka Devi Dasi gave class. Rukmini's spoken a couple times. I was also there remembering. Vishaka gave class, but when she sat down to give class, the microphone was missing. And I think the harmonium was missing, and et cetera, et cetera. So Bhakti Tirthamaj was there at that time, one of the GBC members. He stood up, as Rukmini describes it, some of her classes, like fire, and said, "Where is that microphone?" I think maybe the seat was even missing. The book was missing. Yeah, giving Bhagavatam class, the book, where's the book? So he was like, he jumped up and, yelled at a few people who needed to be yelled at. And magically, the microphone appeared, the book appeared, and she gave a beautiful class, which I think is recorded somewhere. So, reports indicate that some temples may be prepared to ignore the resolutions. Will these temples be held to account, or will they be each left to go their own way? Again, I'm reading this because Sudharma organized, a few of us helped, she organized having this presentation in front of the GBC in the year 2000. So this is the publication of all those presentations, the conclusion, and then the resolution. There will be dilemmas to confront in this process. Many inside an ISKCON and outside of ISKCON will be watching to see if these dilemmas are dealt with fairly and honestly, and I would add consistently. This will be the real test of ISKCON's commitment to its women. So here's the resolution. It's very short, just a page. Whereas, this is GBC Resolution 2000, Section 501. Whereas the Women's Ministry presentation on March 1, 2000 to the International GBC Governing Body Commission brought a clearer understanding of the mistakes of the past and the need to provide equal and full opportunity for devotional service for all devotees in ISKCON, regardless of gender. And whereas it is clearly following in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that all people are welcome to join Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and are capable of developing love of God. And whereas it is our belief that many of the social issues that confront us are exasperated because the voices of our women, who are the mothers and daughters of our Krishna-conscious family, have been hushed and stifled owing to misinterpretation of our Vaishnava philosophy and the resultant minimization of the human needs of our devotees. Therefore, it is resolved that, this is 2000, this is passed, the members of the Governing Body Commission of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness offer their humble apologies to the women of Srila Prabhupada Society, who, because of our own shortcomings and those of the Society, have suffered due to a lack of protection, support, facility, and appreciation for their service, devotion, and vast contributions to the Society. All GBC members and other leaders shall hold Ishtagostis in each of their respective temples to establish the priority of providing equal facilities, full encouragement, and genuine care and protection for the women members of ISKCON. Also, separate meetings shall be held with the leaders and women of each temple to address the women's needs and concerns. And all GBC zonal secretaries, temple presidents, and other leaders are requested, in coordination with the women's ministry, to invite senior devotee women, especially Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples, to visit their temples to provide their association and thus help training younger devotees. And then three more sections short. Section 618, women's participation. All ISKCON temples are to allow all qualified devotees, regardless of gender, to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, etc. during the regular temple class. B, all ISKCON temples designate half of the temple room area divided from the center to the altar for the ladies. In other words, not the back, one side for ladies. And C, if the management in a particular temple feels it is unable to implement these proposals, this was a concession we had to give that was felt at that time. The executive committee of the GBC will appoint a small team of senior devotees, including women, to sensitively review the particular local situation. So this was the GBC resolutions, and this is an article I would suggest you all read, volume 8, number 1, June 2000, from the ISKCON Communication Journal that she really helped lead. So just in final comments for Sudharma, my activist god sister, who was really a wonderful representative of women and the many contributions that they can make in our society. Really knew in a sensitive way how to push the envelope. She, as several people have mentioned, she didn't push so far to push the reaction back, but she knew how to make things happen in a proactive way. And as we can see hearing from this, there's definitely been some backsliding in recent years. Don't need to discuss that, but a lot of the women and men here, I would request, let us continue to offer our appreciation and service to Sudharma by maintaining her energy of activism, Krishna conscious activism, and seeing that the things that she fought for continue to be put forward in the society for the equal protection opportunity of all devotees all around the world forever. Thank you. Sudharma Dasi ki jai.
So next we call on Shesha Prabhu to speak. And I'm going to ask, there's so many people that would like to share. If we can just keep it under 5 minutes, so as many people as possible can share. And Shesha Prabhu has been on the GBC for so many years, taking a leadership position in ISKCON, and is very well respected for his humility and intelligence.
Hare Krishna. Just like to thank all the organizers and all the participants in this very wonderful review of the life and contributions of our God Sister Sudharma Devi Dasi. I first met Sudharma in the early 1980s when she returned to the United States from some time in Asia. Immediately, she made an impact on our temple in Philadelphia by organizing a major festival and working to help our temple board work more effectively. I always personally appreciate her help at that time and recognize her as a special devotee because she made a contribution. She didn't ask for facility. She asked for the opportunity to serve, and she created her own facility. She had that ability, and it was shown up till this later point in her life, with establishing after-school program at the school and the community radio program. She made so many contributions that you've all very nicely discussed. But there's one thing that I have on my list, and I'm going to see if you all have it too. In Mayapur, we know that Prabhupada Samadhi was built. And Prabhupada Samadhi, just like any important building, has an edifice. And that edifice, when it was originally constructed, had all male kirtaniyas. Now somebody, I think Sudharma or the Vaishnavi ministry, campaigned to change that. And if you go there now, you'll see that women, and I believe even children, are part of that edifice, which is supposed to represent Vaishnavas around the world. Consistent with what we're hearing here today, it's not surprising that the initial building had only male kirtaniyas. But it stands as a tribute to the work of Sudharma, and if anybody can spare specifically confirm for me that it was Sudharma, but certainly the Vaishnavi ministry led that change. It's a small thing, but if it's documented, of the records of the Vaishnavi ministry, of the records of Srimad, that this change was made to give a more accurate presentation of who the Kirtanias were that built all these wonderful buildings in Mayapur. So if anybody can anybody confirm that?
Yeah, it was Sudharma.
It was Sudharma.
Yeah.
So when we go to Mayapur now, we can remember Sudharma specifically. That's all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Yesha Prabhu. Next, we'll be hearing on Zoom from Radha Dasi and then Garuda Das.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisance.
And before you begin, I just want to remind everyone to keep it under 5 minutes.
And that she is the now standing Vaishnavi minister.
Okay. Thank you. You're an outstanding Vaishnavi minister. Thank you for joining us.
Hare Krishna. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Very good. Yes. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to Sudharma, whom I deeply, deeply miss. And I want to Raja and Prema. Every time I spoke to her, she spoke about you. Her love for you guys was just so apparent and so intense. And you don't know me at all, but I feel like I know you because she always talked about you. So I experienced Sudharma as both a leader and as a friend. So I'd like to talk about her from those two standpoints. And just to give some context, I joined ISKCON in the late 80s and got to know Sudharma in like the mid-1990s. So this is right at the period when ISKCON is going through a very difficult transition. There were a lot of problems. And I came into ISKCON seeing this philosophy that I firmly believed in, this practice that I could experience and feel the spirituality of, this leader, Srila Prabhupada, who I had no doubts at all about, but I could look around the temple and I could look around the devotee communities and I could see the problems. We all could see the problems. And so for a long time, because my mentors were all sannyasis when I first joined, I was given the advice that yes, there are problems, it's the material world, but we work around them. This is how you work around. And so I came to ISKCON with the idea that I wasn't going to be fully a part of the community, that I was always going to be a little bit outside. Because I was working around the sexism that I could see, and I was working around the other problems that I could see. But coming into contact with particularly Pranada and Sudharma, for the first time, somebody was articulating, yes, these are the problems, and not only what you can see, but even deeper. But they were also working on a solution. And that was so powerful, and that manifested in the North American Vaishnavi ministry, which was followed by the International Vaishnavi ministry. And these were strong, intelligent women who were standing up and doing something to make ISKCON better, to help us follow Srila Prabhupada more closely, to empower not just the women, but also the men to be the best devotees they could be. And that was so faith-affirming, and that drew me closer to ISKCON because I could see that, yes, this is an institution that can grow and become better. And just like we as individuals, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we want to grow and become better. And what I saw in Sudharma's leadership was, everyone's talked about her radical personalism, her love, her support, and that was very powerful in her leadership. But she also had this vision, this dynamic vision that she could see what needed to be done. She could see how to do it. And it's easy, most of us when we're confronted with problems, we do one of two things. We go into denial, no, it's not happening. Or we talk about the problem, and we talk about the problem, and we talk about the problem. But Sudharma had that ability to see the problem, to talk about the problem, and then move to the next step. What are we going to do about the problem? What can I do about the problem? And added to that was her ability to empower others. And for me, in my experience of Sudharma, this was her superpower, because she opened doors for so many Vaishnavis. She supported so many Vaishnavis in increasing their service. And this multiplier effect is, from my perspective, what really made her work so powerful, because it wasn't just Sudharma doing things. It was Sudharma and the army that she brought with her doing things. And so, when we're trying to change a culture, when we're trying to change the way people think, the more people working together, the more effective you're going to be at changing those things. Sudharma's ability to bring people together, to inspire them and to empower them and help them to go out and do more service, to be more effective, is something that I can't underestimate. I can't overstate how important that is. And as others have mentioned, Sudharma didn't just work with the women. She worked with the men. And again, it was those relationships. Everyone who came into contact with her, as far as I can see, felt empowered by her. She approached everyone from the mood of, how can I help you increase your service? So it's not that she was coming and saying, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you said this, you that, you gotta change. She came, she was the fighter, she was the activist who led with love. So when she reached out to somebody to say, hey, there's a situation, what can we do about it? That person didn't have to feel attacked, didn't have to feel defensive, because Sudharma was leading with the heart. She was leading with love. And so that opened the door for people to work together to solve problems. Sudharma always came from the standpoint that individuals are valuable and important, right? She prioritized relationships over results. And I have to say, for me personally, that sometimes made it difficult for me to work with her, because I'm not naturally inclined that way. My mind is looking at, okay, how can we organize this? What's the bottom line? What's it going to take? Let's get over the finish line. And Sudharma would constantly slow things down by insisting on checking in with people, asking about their feelings, asking about their lives, and I'm sitting here, hey, we're on a schedule. And she would constantly remind me that philosophically, mystically speaking, by connecting with people, you're opening the channels for bhakti. This is important work. This is not a waste of time. And also, this is how people become inspired to do things. This is how people become effective at doing things. When we just look at the structure and the problem and the solution and what needs to get done, we're actually taking power away from people, and we are making them less effective. That's a lesson I'm still struggling to learn, but it's something that Sudharma never backed down from, even when I would complain and stomp my little feet that we needed to get things done faster. And I really want to take that lesson forward in this work that we are all doing. As a friend, Sudharma gave me what feels to me like undeserved grace. I want to start by saying that Sudharma and I have said our last goodbyes multiple times. Because we didn't live near each other, always had different things going on. And every now and then we connect, and she'd say, I don't know how much time I have left. I really want to, let you know how important you are to me. And I tell her, I really, somebody that has touched my heart in a way no one else has, and then she'd go on. And we'd have another event where we might say goodbye again, and she'd go on. So I think I kind of got to thinking that she was going to go on, and I'm grateful that we were able to share those feelings, but it also feels like it came out of nowhere, and I just can't believe that she's really gone. As a friend, she was honest, she was open, and she was vulnerable. She shared her feelings with me. When I heard her feelings, she let me know about it. And I'm so grateful for that, because we were able to become closer. Sudharma taught me that authenticity is one of the most important things that we can bring to our relationships and to our service. One of the things that I have struggled with as the Vaishnavi minister is that I can't do things the way Sudharma did, because I don't have her heart, I don't have her level of emotional maturity and spiritual intelligence. And she would always tell me, be yourself. Be the Vaishnavi minister that Dasi is meant to be. Don't try to be something else. I still struggle with that message, but I know it's one of the most important things she ever told me. The lessons I learned from Sudharma that I want to take forward are these. One is that Krishna consciousness is everyone, absolutely everyone. That the best thing we can do is to help others, everyone, to increase their service to Krishna. And that was Sudharma. She was always thinking, in every interaction, how can I help this devotee become more of a servant to Krishna? The third lesson I learned from her is that I have a role, I have a voice, and that's true for every single devotee in ISKCON. We all have a voice in helping each other go back to God, in helping each other to serve Srila Prabhupada, and in helping Lord Chaitanya to share this message with everyone in the world. Everyone belongs, everyone's important, everyone has a voice. Number 4, she taught me that flooding relationships will solve our conflicts and misunderstandings. I have a legal background. If you tell me something, my immediate response is going to be to tell you, 16 reasons with subheadings why you're wrong. And Sudharma would tell me repeatedly, that doesn't convince anybody. That's not how you solve conflict, right? That's how you escalate conflict. As I said before, she came into her fighting, she came into her activism, but she came into it leading with love, leading with communication, leading with being willing to hear other people's points of view and take those into account. And last but not least, that everybody has something important to offer to Krishna. That when we shut the door on any devotee, we're depriving Krishna of a unique offering. And I'm praying to Srila Prabhupada, I'm praying to Lord Chaitanya that I can imbibe these lessons that Sudharma taught. And I'm also praying that we as a society, that her influence can spread, that her lessons can spread, because that's what our society needs. In a larger world and in our own society, there's so much conflict and polarization. And if we understood the lessons that Sudharma was teaching, we would be able to solve them. So, all the ways to Sudharma Devi Dasi.
Thank you so much, Radha. Next, we'll be hearing on Zoom from His Grace Garuda Das, who is a professor and an author in ISKCON. And we're so happy to have you here. We're just trying to ask everyone to keep it at 5 minutes because we have so many other people to speak. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I hope?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, good. With that assurance, I want to offer my heartfelt pranams to all Vaishnava gentlewomen and gentlemen. I knew Sudharma back, I think, in 1983, when Braja was only 1 year old. I met her in New Vrindavan when she was at the book table. She was at the book table a lot with her 1-year-old selling Prabhupada's books. And that's where I met her, because I was there for an academic conference held at New Vrindavan. Later, she ended up moving into a community in which I was involved. There was Dayananda and Nandarani. There was Yamuna Devi. She was there, and others were there. And Sundararupa came from Europe after the whole zonal sort of breakup of European sort of structure there. So I came to know Sudharma when she moved to the Northern Virginia area, and she moved in with Vishaka and Amrita, and they were about the same age, I remember. And they were all very adorable together. I would visit them at their apartment. But I came to know of I came to know Sudharma's interpersonal and intellectual acuity very quickly. And we would have all kinds of sharing of different thoughts about Prabhupada's books, about Krishna Bhakti theology. And I was just amazed at her level of sensitivity, intellectual soundness, and later we would continue this relationship on as we moved in different directions. Sundararupa and Sudharma asked me for my blessings for them to get married. Sundararupa at the time was a sannyasi about several months earlier. And he told me he wanted to be married and did not want to continue in the sannyas ashram. And then they came to me both and asked me for my blessings. And of course, I was delighted to see them together. But I'll just end by saying I recently wrote an article for ISKCON Communications Journal titled From the Darkness of Lust to the Light of Love, interpreting Srila Prabhupada's challenging passage on rape. Now, in this article, I have part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is where I review all kinds of interpretations by Prabhupada's followers. And honestly, some of them are really pathetic interpretations, very sorry interpretations, desperate interpretations. And it was painful for me to go through and see how devotees mistake Prabhupada's words. But when I got to the presentation of a systematic interpretation, Sudharma's words were the only words I quoted in that second section. Why? Because she had the ability to articulate things very, very carefully and sensitively. I'll read the couple of sentences that I quoted in my article. Srila Prabhupada is making these statements not to ridicule, subjugate, demoralize, or compare the sexual interests of men and women. Rather, out of mercy and pain for the suffering of the living entity, he is simply stating what the soul is enduring with an aim to cutting the knot of material attachment. And from there, I went further into Prabhupada's doctrine of love of God. So this is how much respect I have for Sudharma. I'm extremely picky about whose words I quote in building my own understanding of Prabhupada's words, and I had no problem including hers. I've always appreciated her deeply. I've always had a lot of affection for her, and I hope that wherever she is, that she can continue to receive my appreciation and affection. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Guruji Prabhu. Next we'll be viewing a video clip with Sitala Dasi live from Mayapur. And we're trying to keep it like 4 minutes, Sitala, if that's possible.
It's not live, this is a video.
Oh, it's a video.
Hare Krishna. Vanchakapatarubhyascha, Kripasamudiyevita, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you so much for the opportunity to express my appreciation for our dear God sister Sudharma. She did so many wonderful services over the years. She deserves to be glorified for all that she's done. And I hope that many of you will describe these services so that everyone will, really appreciate the magnitude of her contribution. But personally, I don't feel so inclined to talk much about those things right now. Because right now, my heart is really just filled with overwhelming sadness. I just can't seem to get past that incredibly sad feeling of losing a dear friend. So I'm just feeling my own loss right now. I know it's totally selfish sadness, and eventually I will focus more on being happy for her, that finally, the physical suffering she endured for so long with dignity and acceptance is now over, and that she has certainly moved on to a very bright destination. But at the moment, I'm in lamentation mode, because in our lives, we have many people we know, many acquaintances, so many, but an intimate friend is rare. To have someone in your life that you fully trust and who who will really listen with interest and attention to whatever you want to share, and who will openly and honestly respond, and who will always try to see things in light of our spiritual progress, and who genuinely wants to help. Such a friend, it's not always easy to find, and it is a real blessing. And Sudharma, she was that kind of friend, very substantial friend. Even though we didn't spend that much time together. Long ago, when she came to Mayapur for GBC meetings, she would sleep on a mat on the floor in my room, and sometimes we'd go to the Ganga together. But, really, over the years, we didn't spend that much time together. Sometimes we wouldn't connect for even a year or more. And then we would suddenly have, a barrage of communication back and forth. And it was always as if no time had passed, and we could totally relate to each other. So, it's not the amount of time we spend together that creates intimacy. It's our shared experiences, our connection with Srila Prabhupada, and the ability and a willingness to relate with total openness and honesty. And that creates an intimate connection. And that is actually beyond time and space. It's a very special bond of shared experience that very few people in the world can understand, can comprehend. And it is not mere sentiment, but an important aspect of bhakti, as shared by Srila Rupa Goswami. Dadati pratignati guyam akita pruchati bhunte bhojayate chaiva sadvidhim priti lakshana. Love shared by one devotee and another. So the older I get, the more I really appreciate that one of the greatest treasures Srila Prabhupada has given us is loving relationships, Vaishnava relationships. It is what has helped to sustain and nourish me through decades of sometimes challenging, difficult times. But we can survive and even thrive if we have the company of such friends like Sudharma. It's not a small thing, it's a great blessing. And so I thank her so much for her presence in my life. And one of the things that I loved about Sudharma was her constant and intense desire to make things better for others, especially for the ladies in our society. And she wasn't one to whinge or complain about things. She was one to dig her heels in and get to work and work tirelessly in this way, being willing to do anything and everything she could to help, especially her god sisters. So, she was a warrior, always fighting for the benefit of others, but she was not a self-righteous, embittered, or angry warrior, although she suffered her share of hardships in her life. She was not resentful or vengeful. She just continued to work towards making things better in a gracious way with a kind heart. And she really sincerely just wanted us to love and appreciate each other more. And during the time she was involved on a GBC level, she was able to bring difficult conversations to the table. She was a strong woman, which unfortunately is not always appreciated in a male-dominated hierarchy. But she never seemed to be intimidated, manipulated, or easily sidetracked from trying to move the conversation forward in a positive way with a firm conviction that all voices should be heard and that a Vaishnava society should be fair and kind. And she could really hold her own ground. She could stand firm, but not in a heavy or aggressive way, but with a positive spirit, conviction, determination, grace, humility, and often humor. And, these unique characteristics empowered her to assist in making significant improvements in our society. So, we all owe her a debt of gratitude. And she was a great friend and a great soul. And I will really miss our talks.
Thank you so much, Sutara. And next we'll hear from Damayanti.
Hare Krishna, everyone. It's an honor to get the opportunity to listen to all of you, sharing your loving memories and how Sudharma Prabhu touched your hearts and lives in many ways. I offer my deepest condolences to her daughters and to all of her friends. And my name is Damayanti, and I am here on behalf of the Vaishnavis from an online group that is dedicated to make the connection between Prabhupada's female disciples and the Spanish-speaking Vaishnavis around the world. We had the opportunity to connect with Sudharma Prabhu a few times over the past years via Zoom. And for our last meeting, we asked her what would she like to talk about, and she chose the topic, what is most important in life. So you can only imagine how many advices and guidance and wisdom we received that day from her. We were all aware about her health challenges, but as my mother recalled from that day, she was on that meeting too, the more Sudharma Prabhu kept talking, the more energetic and alive she became. And she was an example of compassion and empathy. And on that day, she reassured us that we could always serve Krishna in our capacity, which is very, very empowering. And she truly valued the skills of the devotees and put them into actions. So Janaki from Colombia shares, Sudharma's departure leaves us a deep void, but she also leaves us an invaluable legacy of wisdom and devotion. Her teachings, full of patience, faith, and love for Krishna, are a light that we can always follow in times of difficulty. She has taught us to maintain constancy in our spiritual practices, to find strength in adversity, and to depend on Krishna with a heart full of devotion and trust. Thank you, Sudharma, for reminding us that every small step towards Krishna, made with awareness and patience, has immense value. Thank you for teaching us that by turning to our devotee friends, we will always find willing hands to help us. Your guidance and words will continue to resonate in our hearts, inspiring us to keep our connection with Krishna alive. Your love and dedication are an eternal example for all of us. Alakshya from Mexico shares, Sudharma Prabhu inspires me with her courage, strength, determination, and unmatched character. Sudharma Prabhu is undoubtedly an exemplary Vaishnavi. And Ananda Chinmayi from El Salvador got to assist Sudharma Prabhu on the design of the logo for her Hare Krishna community radio. And she shares, Sudharma Prabhu is an example of strength with such a warm heart and always so willing to help others. So many others have shared with me how they moved from foreign countries to Alatra and how Sudharma Prabhu helped and supported them while they adjusted to a new school, a new country, and their hearts are filled with gratitude as well. So on behalf of my sisters and friends around these countries of Spanish-speaking countries, we want to express our love and appreciation for the presence of Sudharma in our lives. And her legacy continues to reach Vaishnavis in more and more countries. So thank you again for the opportunity to share some words about Sudharma Prabhu. All glories to her. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for an answer. That was beautiful. Okay, next we'd like to hear from Jai Gauri, disciple of Srila Prabhupada and very good friend of Sudharma's.
I met Sudharma way back when she was at a foundation. So I was working, her office was her house. And Raja was there, little girl. I used to bring my son to play with Raja. And Prema was just a baby. She was like in a crib. And Sudharma had this whole operation. And I remember that she felt very hurt when she spoke with Anutama. I remember that. And so from there, Sundara Rupa and Sudharma, they were personal friends, so they used to come over to my house for the weekend, so we'd swim in a pool and have some time together cooking, and Sudharma was a wonderful cook. She knew how to make these sweet and sour vegetables. They were like heavenly. And besides that, we had some memorable trips together. And with Nanda and Sudharma and I, we went camping up north in the mountains. And so we were camping in a cabin and with waterfalls. We were in the forest, walking in the forest. And then we went whitewater rafting. Imagine, the three of us. We went down the river, very energetic. So she was like super fun to hang around with. And she loved to swim. We used to go to the Bowl Springs here and just do laps, just keep swimming, because she was a wonderful swimmer. I think she swam in school. She was in a swimming team. Okay, I just want to be brief. And her resilience in the face of adversity is something that, for me, is her most shining quality. She will always have that quiet mind, very clear and very compassionate, very heartfelt. And she loved her girls very, very much. And her granddaughter, she used to talk to me about the granddaughter. So we became personal friends way back when. So she always called me because she always liked to communicate. And luckily, she called me the night that she passed away. We were on the phone for an hour, from 8 to 9. And so so we've shared everything. I'm very grateful that we were able to say, I love you. She said, I love you, Jaigori. I said, I love you, Sudharma. That was our last words to each other. And so I am very sorry for your loss, Raja and Prema and your sister, and know about you as well. And she talked. And you're her husband? You're the brother. Oh yes, the brother. I know some stories about you guys. It's always. She was always with a heart. Her heart was in the right place. Let me see if I missed anything. Everybody already said so much about her, and it's all there. Thank you very much, and Hare Krishna. If I can do anything for you, let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Jaigori. We'll be hearing next from Tiffany.
Yes, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And I'd also like to say, Braja and Prema, I'm so very sorry for your loss. I know how much you were loved because your mother told me often. So Sudharma was such a brilliant Vaishnavi. She had a brilliant mind and a brilliant heart, and she inspired me every time I talked to her. She spoke with such love and devotion to Krishna, to Srila Prabhupada, and to the devotees. I had the great fortune of meeting Sudharma about 3 or 4 years ago when I was serving on the North American Vaishnavi ministry. And Sudharma had this beautiful idea and vision to start an online radio station for the devotees. And she had approached the ministry to ask if any of us would like to serve with her. And I enthusiastically said yes. I said yes enthusiastically because I knew I had heard about Sudharma and I knew she had started the ministry. And of course, I was always so happy to be in service with any disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So Sudharma and I met on Zoom, and immediately I was grateful for her association. And then eventually we even got to share a Thanksgiving meal together. Sudharma was so incredibly humble, loving, strong, and whenever I spoke to her, she said things that blew my mind and touched my heart so deeply. We laughed so much together, even as she was struggling with all of her health issues. And she had so much love and respect for her god sisters. I mean, even the god sisters who she hadn't seen in years, she would tell me, always say such loving things about them. And I was always amazed at the work that she did for the radio station. Although she always felt like she hadn't done enough or she hadn't completed it, she devoted all of her days to that radio. And every time I listened, I couldn't believe that she was able to get so much done. I would just like to read a small part of the epilogue that she wrote for the emergence of women's voices in ISKCON. Sudharma shared this with me right after we met, and I feel like it's important to read because it's such an expression of her inspiring and beautiful heart. So, and again, these are Sudharma's words. It's been 20 years since I served as the minister for the Vaishnavis or have been active in ISKCON management. In that time, I have had ample opportunity to reflect on these experiences, and as I do, certain thoughts keep coming forward. Number one, if we learn nothing more, I find this the most crucial. Shastra can never be used to support abuse or exploitation, to hurt or diminish, to decry another's service or peace of mind in devotional life. Number two, every soul is valuable and dear to Krishna. I have intense affection for the devotees, and my heart is heavy seeing the state of this world. We must learn to genuinely appreciate what each individual has to offer and help each other to always bring our best foot forward. Good association, loving association is invaluable. Number three, while we know that Krishna loves every living being and that he is in their heart personally looking out for them, we also know that it is the nature of living beings in this world to act against the innermost desire of the Lord. Thus, we behave in a manner that is hurtful to ourselves and others. We may love the sinner, but we must work to uproot the envy in our hearts and uproot the envy in each other. These steps are necessary to reawaken our daughters. Number 3, we must always value the individual above the social construct. I'm going to skip to number 5. We must always hear each other. We should not allow disenfranchisement and prejudice. We should not place individuals into groups with negative connotations, thus dismissing them. Our Vaishnavis are not feminists or insubordinate. They are whole living beings who have integrity and a great deal to offer. Our elderly have experience. Many are wise, not outdated or derelict. Your birth, cultural beliefs, or heritage, gender, race, strength, religion, beauty, affluence, or intelligence really doesn't matter. None of these are final determinants in the matters of love, devotion, understanding, equal vision, care, or any of the truly valuable qualities in life. Your own strength, culture, religion, and intelligence increases when we value each other. And the final part that I'll read is number 6. There is strength in devotional femininity. This is not the power of female over male's desires. Rather, it is the strength of universal motherhood. It is the power of an internal knowing nature that accounts for a loving understanding in the heart. This is not a strength achieved by removal or denigration. Rather, it is a strength given in exchange for love and support. So again, I just want to say I'm so very sorry to Braja and Prema and to the rest of Sudharma's family, her biological family, for such a loss, and of course to all of us in her devotional family. I have no words for the absence that I feel, the emptiness that I feel after losing her, and I know that many of you feel the same. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. That was beautiful. And next, we'd like to hear from Nanda Dasi.
So as you see, we have 20 minutes left. We have to stop at exactly 4. So there's still a number of people to speak, so please, if we can now do 3 minutes or 2 minutes. Can't hear you.
Just 2 minutes per person. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jai, all glories to Sudharma Devi Dasi. I just have 2 little points that I wanted to augment everybody else's points about her. Regarding the radio, she didn't just develop that idea to do the radio. When this building was built in 94 or 95, when it was finished, she was already thinking of the radio. And we had the intention of establishing the radio, and so we did at 10 watts, you know, so it just went like here and there and there. But it was her idea, and she must have been thinking about it all this time and finally figure out how to do it. Because when we did it with the 10-watt thing, we still got a little bit in trouble, so we had to like close that down with the FCC and this and that, and then going through all those legal loopholes would have been like beyond us. So for her to do it online, another brilliant idea from a brilliant lady. She was brilliant. And then another thing to just exemplify how brilliant she was is how much she helped me. I was before, feels like a previous lifetime, but quite a few years ago, I was the temple president here right after this temple was built. Previously, I was in charge of the kitchen, so what I knew was zucchinis and peppers and things like that. And then when I stepped forward, foolishly stepping forward, volunteering to be the temple president, it was a big leap for me, who had never spoken in public before. Like the first time I had to make the Sunday feast announcements, it was like, oh my God. I had to practice at home for 4 hours, and then I still blew it anyway. But anyway, she was a big support. But it was back in the days before everything was online, so when we had differences of opinion, we used to just yell at each other, right? It was those kind of things. And so when we had temple meetings, it went from 0 to 375 degrees in like 20 seconds flat. And Sudharma, and we had the GBC meeting here one year. What year was that? I don't know. 90, thanks. 96, 95, whatever. A long time ago, GBC meeting here. And Jamuna led the Guru Puja first time, and it was like, oh my goodness. Anyway, and so there was contentious issues. Don't be surprised. We had some contentious issues. And Sudharma had the ability to stand up and listen to somebody yell and scream their incoherent point, and she would repeat it in a coherent, calm way that it sounded like they were even making a nice point. And then she could take the other screaming, yelling person and put that in a nice way, and you felt like that they were communicating, but they only could communicate through her. So and one more quick thing, okay, it's fine. One more quick thing is oftentimes things would get overwhelming for me personally. One time after a big festival when I was totally overwhelmed and I couldn't do anything else but lie on the ground. Sudharma came and lied next to me and said, it's okay, Nanda. Everything's okay. Everything went really well. Thank you, Sudharma. Hare Krishna. I can go on.
Thank you so much, Nanda. Next, we will hear from Ranga Dasi. Both very exalted disciples of Srila Prabhupada, long time serving at many temples, including this temple. Jai Sudharma, amazing, amazing devotee. I can imagine how proud Srila Prabhupada is of Sudharma. She followed him with his compassion and love. How else could she have done all those things without compassion and love? The tremendous amount of difficulty she faced, the beautiful daughters she raised, family. I would love if you spoke and told us some childhood pastimes of Sudharma. I don't know a single one.
I know very few myself. I was 5 years old when she left home.
Oh, 5 years. And you?
Yeah, we were a year apart.
You're a year apart. Oh. Anyway, you girls need anything, just call me or let Pranada know. Okay, I don't live but down the road. So I wanted to say a little something about the radio station. I was sitting in the radio station one day with her, and she was explaining to me what exactly she wanted to do with that radio station. And I realized at that time that Sudharma is not a woman or a person with any prejudice at all. She just wasn't prejudiced. She was open-hearted. She loved everyone. She wanted to give herself to a better world. She said, I want to have a big variety of music because there's a big variety of people that I want to listen who can get a little drop of Krishna in their lives. That was her motivation. And I thought that was, so perfect. Not only music, but philosophy, or a play, or a reading. One time she had me read a couple of stories. And, she had this ability, broad ability to reach out to all kinds of people. And she was pretty equipoised with anybody, wasn't she? Praji, was she? Yeah. Prem. She had so much devotion to you two girls. You're so lucky. It's sad that she left. I have my condolences. But wow, what a legacy she left for you. A strong person to follow in every single way. Hare Krishna. Well, thank you so much, Ranga. Next we'll be hearing from Janava. Janava?
Yeah. Who's next after that? Who's next after that?
Rita Kelly.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to share a really nice story that echoes some of the points that have been made here today. So we just have to go back to about 1990, 1989, something like that. And I was a very new member of our Hare Krishna movement, and I was living in the temple in New York. And His Holiness Bhakti True Swami and one of his disciples from Switzerland were visiting. And all of a sudden we found out that this television program with this very famous host named Phil Donahue, if that rings a bell for any of you, wanted to interview the devotees. And so our temple authorities thought, well, yeah, let's send Bhakti True Swami because he's so articulate and so elegant and so composed, and he's such a gentleman. And then we'll send his proper disciple from Switzerland with him. And somebody said, well, I think you better send a woman, and I think you better send somebody with a little bit more oomph, just in case. You never know how he's gonna present those questions. He may be challenging. So somehow Sudharma got elected for that. And we were all watching on the edge of our seats in the temple, and excitement and nervousness. And this is a huge television show with millions of people watching. So it turns out that that Phil Donahue was very challenging. And Bhakti True Swami, who's also no longer here with us, was just too much of a gentleman and a yogi and a swami and, too cultured, really, to know how to respond to these, questions coming out, being fired at him like bullets. And it's like his jaw dropped and his head started sweating, and he just became very timid and just said these sweet, loving, wonderful things that, was not going to satisfy anybody in the American audience listening to this or watching it. And then Phil asked the disciple, and the disciple was very, very new in his devotional life. So every answer was just kind of, like the parrot, but didn't quite have the effect that it should have had. So we were all sweating too, and our jaws are all dropping. We were just wondering what is going to be the fate of this potentially amazing interview. So Sudharma just said, "Excuse me, if I may," and she just chimed in, and she just corrected every single point and was so salient and so perfect. And she put Hugh Donahue in his place, but, with a lot of respect and culture, and he just had nothing to say after she spoke. And my condolences to you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for that, Janava. That was really fun to hear. And next we'll be hearing from Amrita Kaylee.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances to all of you, and my love to you both. It's such an honor to hear from you and meet you today. Thank you as well. I was feeling some distinct pain in my heart from this passing, and wondering why. And I think one of the main reasons is because Sudharma Prabhu is a sort of mysterious, loving personality in my life who came into my life and invited me into big thought and big action and big love, and I had no idea why. Why is she asking me to be involved in any of this? And I still don't. But I think it's because she sees the potential, not just the potential, like the inherent ability for each of us to have an impact and to be a part of our healthy, flourishing movement.
I have had some beautiful experiences with her doing homework for the Vaishnavi ministry for a short period of time when I was young, and I'm so disorganized, and even then. But what I got to do was look through all of Srila Prabhupada's letters about everything that he wrote about Vaishnavis, or anything regarding women, at such a pivotal time in my life when I was living in Jacksonville. And then having meetings about the radio and understanding that I didn't get it. She was so passionate about this radio, but what I see now is that not only is she's preaching around the world like she did when she was younger, she's engaging all of us. She's saying, get creative, do whatever you want to do on the radio, own it. And also, it's a platform of love. That was her biggest thing, was that this radio is healthy, and it sends a message to all newcomers that everyone can take part in Krishna consciousness. Everyone belongs here. Two things that I have distilled from hearing from her loved ones today that has been really healing and insightful for me. How healthy is the movement that we are inviting people into? And so not only are we taking the responsibility and the joy of inviting people into Srila Prabhupada's movement, but we have to ensure ourselves that it's healthy. How can we do our part to represent Prabhupada well? The second is, am I going to use my unique, honest, loving creativity and strength inside of ISKCON or outside of it? Because as souls, we're going to express ourselves. I'm at a point in my life at Sudharma Prabhu's passing where I'm beginning to find some inkling of strength and conviction and exploration and creativity. And I am also at a point where I need to choose, where am I going to harness the second half of my life? And I feel that this has provided a very unexpected invitation to really ask myself, where am I going to put my contribution to life? I'm so grateful to her and to hearing from each of you today. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Amrita Kaylee. And next to hear from Pranada, who really did so much organization in getting this memorial together.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been really beautiful to take this time to really think deeply, remember Sudharma, such a beautiful person. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to share some of the things I was thinking of sharing. I think everyone pretty much covered, her piercing intellect, her depths of personalism, and it was astounding to watch up front. And to be, in her presence. She was a very unique and treasured person. I will say just something about our relationship toward the end. I mean, I met Sudharma, I guess it was maybe 85, but then in 1988 we began to work together. And then from that time on, I was either serving with her or engaged with her in different ways. And, also Sitala said, you meet there's certain kind of people that are extraordinary in your life, and Sudharma was that for me. So I will deeply miss her. I would just share, because she was so sick in the last few years of her life, she was basically housebound. And because I've been basically housebound, we used to share notes about what it means to age, grow sick, and come closer to dying. And it's a very different experience. Life is very different when you are bedbound and housebound. It's not like the life, like you're watching life go by and you're inside, and it's very, very internal. It's very quiet. It's extremely demanding on the self to really take what you've been given in the philosophy and live it now, because now you're reduced and it's just you and Krishna basically. And we would have conversations about how we were watching other people's lives go by and things happen, and how we had been kind of like removed from things and were in a very quiet life. And she would always say, you know, I'm just so content. I'm so peaceful. I had such a beautiful life. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for my daughters. And she absolutely loved her god sisters. She had so much love. It was just amazing. Because I saw the back end of all of the conversations, and it was all about her god sisters. She just wanted to make them happy. She had such deep affection. And she said, I've done as much as I can for them. I've really worked hard. I did as much as I can. And I feel my relationship with Krishna is very deep and secure. I feel loved, and I can go at any time. And we had that conversation many, many times, actually, especially the last year as she was declining, and I was also in a health crisis. So we had many conversations like that. And it's a very interesting stage of life, and I think it's an opportunity for us to think, when we do get sidelined, to have association of someone who has that experience and can journey it with us, because it's very, very different than an active life. So I wanted to thank you both, Karen and Greg, for coming. Thank you, Raja and Prema. May you be well, and anything you need, we can help. Thank you all for participating, and how glorious to Sudharma. We need to move all the chairs. So the cushions on your chair get stacked in the back of the temple room. The chairs are folded and set outside. There was only like a second.